Here we are, we're back out again, bankside. Feels really good. We've got a blustery old June day, sort of in the early part of summer now. And yeah, it's been a long time since I did a vlog. You know, it was probably last summer as it goes. So I thought it was about time that we had a little catch up, and I can tell you what we've been doing over the last months. Give you a little bit of insight into what we're going to be doing in the future over the rest of the year. So yeah, for now I'm going to take you right back to that time when I did my last blog. I think the first real sort of project we did from there was we went over to the Metz Lake in the Colne Valley to film the Insights films for thinking anglers. Really nice project. I really enjoyed it. It's been well received. And I've had personally, you know, a load of really nice messages on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot regarding the film that we did, my own personal film. Obviously, we did a lot of other films with the other guys. And yeah, the project went ever so well. Couldn't have wished for anything better, really. So that was a lovely thing to be part of. And I was lucky to fish a really cool lake, that Metz Lake. Was everything that I like in a carp lake. You know, it's a mature old gravel pit in the historical Colne Valley. Some really nice carp in there. We filmed that in September, so proper carpy time of year to be out and about. We had great weather, and yeah, I mean, you know, the film wasn't without its ups and downs. You know, I lost one early on, and you know, had to do a few things to rectify that. And I think that showed, you know, the reality of carp fishing as we know it. You know, nothing goes really smoothly all of the time. So it's about being adaptable, using your sort of experience and the tackle that you've got available to you to rectify situations, and that's what we did. And the outcome was we put a really lovely old mirror on the bank, and that was great. So yeah, that project was done and dusted, and I moved back to my target water after that. And yeah, after a week or so, I managed to find a few fish in a quiet area of the lake. We're now into early October, so you had that real autumny vibe to it. Lovely time of the year to be out on the bank, and yeah, probably one of my favourite times of year, to be fair. And this particular trip that I'll take you back to, I turned up very late. It was dark, in fact, by the time I got to the lake, and there was a wind swing forecast for the following day. So with that end of the lake being quiet, I used that time to put a bit of bait in on some spots that I'd caught carp from earlier in the year, and it had been quite a consistent area for me. So I put a bit of bait there and went and fished a different zone of the lake for the night. Heard a couple of fish, but nothing really spectacular. Got up in the morning, and the wind that had been blowing into that area had sort of dissipated, and we had an almost flat, calm lake, a level playing field really. And the first two shows of the morning were round to my left, so it almost felt like they were already on their way round even before the wind had picked up. I was in a bit of a dilemma as to whether to move early or just ride out the morning. And as the morning progressed, I saw fish showing gradually further round the corner, and I knew I had to make my move before someone else had sort of clocked them. So I reeled the rods in, went and had a quick look in that zone, and yeah, right before my eyes, I went into a very sort of intimate little area to begin with, where I'd often seen the carp turn up before they moved into this bay. And on arrival into that area, I immediately clocked a little group of mirrors, a sort of really old, ancient, withered linear, sort of an upper 20. He ghosted past, and as it happened, I thought there was an opportunity to do a bit of filming, so I grabbed my camera and videoed these carp in this very close, intimate area. And you wouldn't believe it, but I was fortunate enough to see one of the lake's big mirrors, the big mirror. It's a 50-pounder, a big carp. and he was right under my feet in a little hole in the weed. Got a little bit of footage, but obviously I had to be incredibly cautious and careful. I didn't want to mess up my opportunity for later in the day. So I sort of crept out of the zone, went and got all my kit, moved into the area. As I said before, I'd already put bait out the night before. Only a small amount, just priming the zone, if you like. And so it was pretty academic. I knew all I had to do was clip my rigs on, tie a pop-up on, and flick out to the respective zones that I'd baited, and it was job done. By this point, I'm just setting my brolly up, and it had gone from a low cloud base to like heavy rolling black clouds, and a fine drizzle was falling. And that wind had picked up to a good, it's probably maybe 25, 30 mile an hour gusts at this point. So you're getting whitecaps rolling up the lake, and the rods are all in position. I'd got the kettle on, the brolly was up, I was all sorted and settled. A lovely place to be, sort of thing. And I suppose maybe 3:30, a real big fish has rolled in between my right hand and middle rods. Great sign, obviously. It was a good fish, and you've got to remember that I'd seen that big mirror only a few hours before in the margins, just round the corner. There was another big fish with it, so yeah, I had that sense of anticipation building within me. I had a mate fishing in the far corner, so he was, maybe sort of 100 yards away or whatever, across the other side of the lake, and we made a few phone calls, quite exciting. The fish were turning up. We were already in there settled and what have you. And a steady rain fell. And, the time was getting on, but that middle rod's ripped off. I picked the rod up, heavy battle out. It's quite weedy still, it's only early October. The weed sunk, but there's big beds of weed in this area. It's weeded me up 2 or 3 times. I'm getting wet now, the rain's falling quite steadily, and it was clear I was attached to a really good fish. I managed to get him out the weed twice and see which one I was attached to, and I could sort of see it wasn't the big mirror, but it was a proper one, so I wanted him in the net. Anyway, little tussle under the rod tip, and I put it in the net, and I sort of recognised it as one that it was a rare capture out of the lake. At the time, I'd only known of one other capture. Subsequently, I've heard that it had been caught a few years before at a smaller weight. But a friend of mine had caught it earlier in the summer, sort of thing, early summer. So it was a known one, but a real nice one, 41 pounds. Made the call to my mate. He reeled in and came round, and we were tight for time. It was dusk, there was a low cloud base, rain was falling, but we managed to get the job done, photographed, little bit of film, and I slid her back to those choppy old autumn waters of the lake, and I just thought, well, that's a really good way. If I don't catch any more this year, that's a great way to end the season. And as it was, as we moved into November, we had a couple of really harsh frosts. Frozen all the track around the lake, all the puddles were frozen solid, the reed beds were all ice, covered in ice, thick sort of cold mist hanging over the lake, and those fish just didn't want to show themselves. It was hard to track them down, and as time rolled on, it was time to probably sort of fish a bit closer to home, start those lovely winter socials that I enjoy so much at that time of year, running into Christmas. The travelling side of things, it didn't seem to be sort of good, it wasn't going to be that effective. So that's what I did. We ran into Christmas. I managed to do a few social trips with friends on local waters, just enjoying company and what have you. Christmas comes and goes, spend time with the family and that type of thing. So it's nice to have that little bit of a break from the fishing and sort of recharge the batteries, if you know what I mean. Then coming out the other side, you've got a few choices to make. You need to plan your year ahead, and of course we all do that. myself included. I want to know where I'm fishing, what my sort of plans are for the seasons, and what have you. And I knew I would be going back to that target pit. And really I wanted to wait for the first better days of early spring. So I normally start looking for the weather really closely around mid-February, and I want to be back on those target waters by that sort of time. So I had a few weeks to kill, and that was spent, you know, I went roach fishing with my good mate Paul forward. We had a lovely day on the river, trotting with the old centre pin for the roach, caught some real quality roach. And then the following week, I saw a big storm forecast, big winds. Can't think back of the name of the storm. I think it might have been Storm Brendan, the second big one of the year, coinciding with a lot of low pressure, obviously, and warm, windy conditions, 60, 70 mile an hour winds. And I thought, where can I go for that's a reasonably local sort of area? And I thought, do you know what, I'm going to get back up that old Thorny Weir. Really enjoyed myself up there in the autumn, and Dave that runs it is you know, a sound guy, so I made the call to him and he said, yeah, get yourself up here. There's been a few fish trickling out. So yeah, got up there for that stormy period. I was lucky enough to catch one, a nice like scaly mid-20, right in the eye of the storm. I think it was about 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and the wind was peaking at like 70 mile an hour gusts. I was hanging on to the brolly spokes, and I've heard my receiver a couple of bleeps, and then it's just one noted off. And I'm out there playing this fish, holding on to the rod. I couldn't really feel a lot, to be fair. It was brutal. But this lovely old mirror's rolled in the net, and that made that trip worthwhile. Something to note on that trip, it was really interesting. It was lovely to see, actually, and it was something that I hadn't actually visually seen with my own eyes for a long time. And that was I managed to get some carp feeding in a really shallow area of the lake on a shelf, really in like 2 foot, 2.5 foot of water. I'd seen them in a snag nearby, and I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to scatter a few bloodworm pellets and a bit of crumb boilie, bit of crumb manila on this shelf and see if I get a reaction. And I went back the next day, and there was a bit of cloudy water there, and so I put a few more pellets down, and went back half an hour later, and I've got a group of like upper 20s, a couple of low 30s, absolutely troughing on this shelf. Now, you couldn't put a rod in there, it was no fishing zone, obviously, but to see those carp in January feeding really like quite hard on the gravel, on this bit of bait, the liner, was phenomenal. So I used my little handy cam and got a bit of footage of them milling around and what have you, and yeah, just lovely to see that sort of thing going on. So that sort of brought us up to that period of time where I'm looking to go back to my target water, you know, mid to end of February, early March. I'm looking for those better conditions. And they cropped up on the horizon quite nicely. I saw a day that was, I think looking back on it, it was due to get up to about like 16, 17 degrees. Nice bit of sunshine, light winds, perfect for getting up there and hopefully finding them, getting on the shallow ground or in one of the corners under the snags, sunning themselves, cleaning off, whatever. It was a good time to get back to the lake. So I made the journey up there, long old journey. Turned up sort of mid-morning, perfect, sun's out, it means I can spend all day looking around the pit, you know, looking for opportunities, seeing if I can see a few shows or whatever. And yeah, I actually put a little bit of baiting on a couple of areas because the lake was quiet, and I thought that's something to look at over the trip. And it took till, I think I'd walked from around 10 o'clock till, it must have been about 4:30, 5 o'clock. Still hadn't got the gear out of the van. And that late afternoon, early evening, There was a little hatch going off as it goes, probably one of the first of the year, and I saw a good fish stick its head out right at one end of the pit. That was pretty much all the sign I needed. So I've run back, got the gear out of the van, set up in the swim that looked out onto this little zone, leaded it up, with a very light lead, and it was perfect, just low-lying, light weed. You knew why the fish wanted to be there. It was quite shallow. There was natural food occurring. It was a good spot to do the night. So I did the night. Nothing happened, as it often is the way at that time of year. The fish melt off to other areas in the dark. The nights are still very cold, despite warm daytime temperatures. So it's quite often a good idea to fish separate zones if you can, if the lake's quiet enough. I did the night in that area. The following day I moved up to a completely different zone to fish the night. Basically, I had this feeling that the fish were using a different area at night, and nothing happened that particular night. I don't think I heard anything or saw anything. Packed my kit away, made my way home, and I think you know what's coming next. It was right at that time where we were in the early stages of hearing about this virus, this COVID-19, and the news was full of it. Anglers chat, everyone was talking about it, and we were waiting for that imminent news flash from the government. This particular statement from Boris Johnson as to what we could and couldn't do. We were all dreading this word, this lockdown. And I was due to go back to the lake. I think my session was to run, I can't remember now, Tuesday to Thursday or Wednesday to Friday, I can't remember. But I thought I'm going to wait and see what he has to say on this particular night. And we stuck the news on, and it was bad news. He was shutting the country down, basically. I think it came as a shock to everybody, to a degree, and it was going to change how we operated and lived our lives for the foreseeable future. Scary times, It was very, very unusual. I'm not going to use the word unprecedented because I think that's been overused in the news and on every media platform. But yeah, strange times, and a lot of bad stuff was going on that we didn't really know about, and we were going to have to adjust to it, and it meant no angling. I felt on a moral basis and a company basis that my angling was going to be put on hold for the foreseeable future, which, I know we all love our angling. For someone that spends a great deal of their time outdoors, I knew this was going to be a testing period for me, both mentally and physically. And you'd have to change the way you sort of thought about things and what we did. It's just being adaptable, and I think, the first couple of weeks was difficult and everyone found it incredibly hard, but you adapt your life to it. I knew that I'd have to do other things to occupy my time. We did a lot more, or did a lot more personally, reflective stuff on social media. Was speaking to a lot of people that might never normally message me about various things, which was really good. I spoke to people on a technical level about a lot of stuff, which I don't often do, unless they've asked a question about a product, a thinking angler's product or a bait scenario, and there were people that were messaging you that just wanted to have a chat about things, and that was a good time filler, and it felt like a real worthwhile thing to be doing. So I enjoyed that, and I hope people that I did speak to found it interesting. Put a lot of old shots up on social media and what have you that sort of makes a little talking point and what have you. A friend of mine even made a Facebook page on a lake that I fished many years ago, Brook, and that went mad. You know, loads and loads of old shots put on there, which, you know, made a lot of good talking points. It was a really, you know, I found it quite cathartic, all that, you know, going back through stuff in time, and yeah, it made it all the more sort of worthwhile. But there was no doubt about it, you know, we all wanted to get back fishing, and we all wanted some semblance of normality to come back to our lives. So, you know, we planned for the future. We had a lot of projects for, you know, via Sticky and Thinking that we had to put on hold through that period of time. But there was light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it was that, you know, this weekend, can't remember the date now even, but there was going to be an announcement. There was going to be a relaxation of these strict lockdown measures and what have you. And, you know, I'd got all my gear prepped like you would. I was so excited. Is this going to happen? You know, we'd lost a lot of the spring, but there was still a lot to look forward to. So, you know, there was a lot of umming and ahhing, a lot of toing and froing. It was like, are we going to be let out? Aren't we? Is there going to be night fishing? Is it going to be just days? And I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm going to just bide my time and wait for the right moment. I wanted to go at the right. I wanted it to be a really enjoyable first trip back out. So, you know, I waited for all that information to come filtering back. Obviously, we're all on the phone to each other and whatever. Is it going to happen? What's going to go on? And eventually, we got that go ahead. You can go fishing, and you can do the nights. So that Tuesday night, my van was loaded, and I couldn't sleep. I left home at, I think it was around 2 a.m, something like that, and I made my way up the motorways through the counties, and it was like, a lot of my travelling's done early hours of the morning, but this was like some like post-apocalyptic scene. It was just, there's nothing about, and you thought, am I really supposed to be doing this? It was so bizarre. It was such a strange time, but the excitement and the anticipation was there. And I remember that there was just this faint glow of daylight filtering through a dark old grey sky that morning as I pulled up onto the lake. And I trundled the old van up, and it doesn't go away. That intense excitement and anticipation of what might be is there, no matter whether you've had 2 months off, a year off, a week off. It's exactly the same. And I was absolutely full to the brim with enthusiasm and excitement for this trip. And I remember getting out my van. Jim wanted to get out and have a sniff round. You know, he'd just been confused by the whole thing. Why weren't we going fishing? He regularly comes out with me, and we thought we'll have a quick walk round first, see if we can't see anything. And I drove up the windward end of the lake. You know, there was a brand new sort of northerly blowing. It was howling, in fact. It was a strong wind, and I got up on the end of it. Thought, you know what, there's no one up here. I'm going to sit up here for a while, watch the sort of the light of dawn unfold before me. And I think I'd only been there maybe 15 minutes, and a real good one showed out in the middle of this bay. Clearly one of the big ones. It moved a lot of water, big old head on it like a Labrador. It was the sign I needed. So I've run back round this track, and there's quite a big gap in the bushes at this area. You get a panoramic look back down this bay, and as I'm trotting back to the van, again this big old head's come flying out the water, like shuffling up, pushing the waves away, and, you know, interrupting this flow of water up that end. And it was like, this is a sign from the gods. This is like a karma offering, if you like, to me, a welcome back. And I was gonna make the most of it. So I've loaded the barrow, got round to the area, and it's an area I know very well. Got the rods out fairly quickly, and yeah, I'm not going to dwell on the capture too much, because you know, those guys at Sticky, they've sort of nailed me down for a bit of a forthcoming film project yet again, one of these lovely reflections films, and we're gonna use part of that and the stories and an onward process over the year coming to build one of these films. So I'll just give you a brief resume really, but I was lucky enough to catch one of the smaller residents by lunchtime, and by early afternoon I caught one of the big two. Big mirror, got a lot of history. It was an old mirror from the lake. Was an otter casualty at one point, had a lot of damage and scar tissue to heal, but in my net at 3 o'clock that afternoon sat a big bristling 50-pounder. What a way to end lockdown, what a way to return to the lake. It was an amazing little opportunity that I'd taken, and it was like the best welcome back that you could possibly have had. Blew me away, but yeah, we're going to use that and the story and other things to build a bit of a future project. So where did we go from there? Well, you know, it's now early summer. I've moved off of that pit to a lovely little venue that I had earmarked for a bit of summer fishing. And yet again, we've got some ideas. We're going to do like a nice seasonal carp angling project. A sort of summer, autumn, winter, and spring fishing scenario, and build that into a little film for you. So you've got like a seasonal carp project from me. This one will start on here, and then we'll move on to my next venue sort of September-y time probably, and get a start there. It's a project that I'm really excited about. It's a brand new venue for me. A lot of really, really special carp, good lookers, scaly ones, some big uns, in the most beautiful surroundings you could ever want to fish in. So that's on the burner for later on in the year. And in between times, we'll put a few little vlogs together, as and when stuff of interest happens, and we'll get the platform built back up. Hopefully you'll enjoy what we put together for you in the coming year. But it's been good to catch up. I know it's been a long time. I've got a few ideas for the next vlog. We're going to do a little bit of a look at some of the things that I promised last year that sort of didn't happen through to certain circumstances in the filming trips and what have you. So we will cover those things. If you want to get involved, get on that format, the Thinking Anglers YouTube site, and you can private message me. You can ask for certain questions to be answered during the vlogs, or certain items of tackle to be looked at, how I organise my kit. I know we said we're going to do that. There's loads of little things that we can do. Just give me a shout. We'll try and cover them over the coming months, and we'll get these other film projects done, and hopefully you'll enjoy them. So I'll see you next time.